Hi, everybody, and welcome to the MoneyMan Show. I've got the money boy here, Oliver Keohane, who's a bit of a hairy-ass baby, so I don't know how much we can keep calling him the money boy. And I've got Dylan, a football expert. It's great. It's exciting. Premier League again. It always seems like such a lull in the betting world and excitement on sport when the Premier League ends. But it's here, it's back tomorrow, and so we're going to make some predictions on this weekend's scores, chat a bit about the relegation battle, and chat about who we think are going to make the Champions League places. So the guaranteed 4 spots and good possibility of 5 spots, depending on how the results go in the year.
I think me and Dor were chatting before the show, and it's always an interesting time of the year where the most hype around the Premier League is actually kind of this time, transfer market, rumours, and it's the same thing that we see every year, but our excitement is equal come the next season. Regardless of how things panned out, whether Man City's won, their 300th trophy in a row, you get as excited kind of seeing who your team's brought in, who they've let go, and how second to 18th may pan out.
Well, obviously you're identifying as a woman saying 300 in a row. I think it's actually 3 trophies in a row and going for their 4th. But I've never known you to be prone to exaggeration.
Yeah.
Well.
Gen Z.
Well, we've got starting off Friday, we've got Burnley hosting Man City. Battle of the Champions. Burnley ran away with the championship last year in terms of for old people out there, Division 1. What do you make of that game?
I think it's pretty straightforward. The odds are 1.3 on Man City, and I think rightly so. We do see
30% return on your money is not bad. It's certainly performing better than a lot of cryptocurrencies.
Look, they're playing at Burnley, but at the end of the day, I think you can't get caught up in the romance. It's Manchester City, kind of the most powerful team.
Without romance, what do we have?
Well, fair enough. But I think we do see often these teams that have been newly promoted kind of have a blinder in their first game. But that blinder isn't always a win. Leeds had a blinder when they got promoted. They still lost 4-3 to Liverpool.
Let's not talk about Leeds.
So I think Burnley will put in a very, not to be condescending, but a very hearty performance. And I think Man City will win 3-0. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
Of course you don't. I haven't told you. Dill, what do you?
So I think Burnley's going to be interesting this year because, firstly, obviously Vincent Kompany's returning, facing his old teammates, facing his old manager, but it's not the Burnley that we have gotten used to with Sean Dyche and that putting 11 men behind the ball, like almost anti-football, you could say. Obviously, they got over 100 points in the championship last year, which is insane.
Yeah.
They
ran away with it.
Evolved into a goal-scoring team.
Yeah.
But I agree that Man City are just too dominant. I think that as much as Vincent Kompany would like to make a statement, I think that Pep is just... I think that it'll probably be 2-0, 2-0, I think, to City.
And do you think there's going to be any hangover? Some pundits and some people that they're talking, you look at Liverpool last year, for example. They didn't do what Man City did, obviously, but when you play that many games and then you win it, it's got to take some wear and tear on a team. And then what's the motivation this year? Do you think there's going to be any hangover from that? And they made a couple of astute signings, but they've also lost the likes of Amares,
Gundogan.
Yeah. Those aren't exactly the average player.
No, for sure. I think the Community Shield, it's a glorified friendly in my opinion. I don't think that you can take a lot away from it and think that the season's going to be defined.
Boo, how dare you.
We saw Liverpool beat City comfortably last year and they completely collapsed.
And remember the headlines were Nunes
versus Haaland.
It's like, but that's in an age where we need information and try and make sense of the world quickly. We're going to get those things. We'll get them after the first week, and the odds do change based on performance. But you don't think there's going to be a Man City hangover?
I think that if they were to have a hangover, we would have seen it already because they've won so much. they've done the three-peats of the Premier League, and this is their first Champions League. I think they're probably more motivated than ever because they want to cement themselves as like a great team, and they've done it by winning the treble.
I think let's also not forget the youth that City has behind them. They're one of the strongest academies now. They had a lot of young players that weren't getting, that much starting time last season, but they were playing very well when they did play. So I don't think, I think if you look at City's squad, there's a couple of guys that have been in that system winning for a while, but there's a few guys that, Jack Grealish is going to be into his third season now with City. I don't think he's going to be lost for hunger. I think a lot of the academy players coming through that are getting time, and like you're saying, guys that were previously at Premier League sides or any of the top European sides, but weren't actually used to winning. I think that squad is too well balanced for there to be a hangover. Whereas you look at Liverpool and it was the same legs that were trying to do the same things for 4 years in a row. I think that's where the hangover kind of comes.
Yeah, and look, the departure of Mane certainly. I think that no one was expecting that sort of drop-off. Look, it's going to be... And they do have the motivation. One, they've got Pep, who to me is...
He doesn't stop.
No, he's the best. He's the best football manager in the world, I believe, and closely followed by Klopp. So it'll be interesting to see. I've got that. I've got 2-0 for Man City. I think, like you said, I think it'll be pretty tight in the first half. Burnley won't want to lose it, and it'll be a dogfight. But I think that Man City have too much quality, and get one, and then as Burnley open up, they'll get a second. Man City will. So I've got 2-0 for Man City.
I think we should also be hoping that Lyle Foster makes his Premier League debut. Maybe he can prove us wrong, score a hat-trick against City or something.
Then we have an interesting one. Arsenal at home against Forest. Now, for me, Forest team, they had a lot of injuries last year. Steve Cooper's become a bit of a fan favorite there for getting them promotion and staving off relegation last year. In fact, I think that they didn't lose a game during November to February, from late October to early February. And the only games they did lose was to Arsenal and Man United. So they've got... I picked them as a relegation team because bringing 21 players into a squad and managing to get anything to gel must have been very difficult. So I think they'll have a more settled squad this year, but it's a tough opening game.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal meant business in this transfer
Look, they're the
window.
Community Cup Shield winners. So
I think it's I think it's straightforward. Where I think it's easy to look at team names and think, okay, like opening game of the season, or whatever it could be. If you list the players, I think that's what you need to look at. And you read that starting lineup for Arsenal, and that's the strongest Arsenal team that there's been in a long time. If all their guys are fit,
Well, Jesus isn't fit, so that's my concern from them in the early part of the season until he gets back. Is an out-and-out striker.
I don't know how much do you think? I think Arteta's also kind of got that intellect though to adapt around that. And if you look at the way that Arsenal play,
Pep Jr.
Yeah, I mean they move the ball a hell of a lot. Interesting stat that I did see about Arsenal was that they had the most consistency in their starting 11 last year. It was something like 83% of the games were played with the same players. So something that's going to be interesting is to see how they function if there are injuries, like you're saying, to key players, because the signings they've made are not so much signings to bolster the depth of one squad, but rather sort of the talent ceiling. Bringing in a guy like Declan Rice, Havertz, that they're going to sort of be trying to put into that midfield.
Well, they have a very young team, and so they've also got the extra year of that maturity, and they played some beautiful football last year. A lot of people poked fun of them blowing it, and I actually saw those videos where the relay team was going in reverse, in terms of meme comparing them, Arsenal, to them. I love Mikel Arteta. I think he's I was very outspoken about him not succeeding, but since they cut the cancer out, who's the player? Aubameyang, yeah.
Who's since you've seen his path since then. Yeah.
So getting him out of the squad was great, and then ever since that happened, they just they had the best record in the Premier League after that happened till the end of this last year's season, and they finished second. And I actually picked second. I believe Arsenal finished second. But in this
I think
game,
you also picked Liverpool to finish first, though.
Take the W's where you can.
exactly. I only point out, like a lot of YouTubers and people, I only point out the things that I do well at. Because the video would be too long if I had to pick the things I get wrong. Look, for this one, I've got Arsenal. They're at home, 3-1. Type of game they need to win. But I think it'll be an entertaining game.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to watching it, but 3-1 to Arsenal.
Yeah, I've gone for 3-0. I think to Arsenal. I think that Arsenal just upgraded perfectly exactly where they needed to. I think even though Jesus is injured, Havertz did a very good job up front for them against Man City. I think he held up the ball really well. He linked up really nicely. And I don't think he's going to necessarily be a goal threat, as in 15, 20 goals a season, but I think he links up the front line and the midfield really well. So I think he'll do well against Forest. I just don't think Forest are strong enough to cope with them. So, yeah, I think 3-0 Arsenal.
Okay, so we all agree on 3. Okay, Bournemouth versus West Ham. West Ham, the conference...
Conference League champions, yeah.
And Bournemouth, tough at home, played some decent football. I mean, was it Steve Parker they got rid of after that?
Scott Parker?
Scott Parker.
Yeah.
Same difference. Scott Parker, was it a 7-0 or 9-0 loss?
9-0 to Liverpool.
9-0 to Liverpool, yeah. Well, you can see why I had optimism picking Liverpool to win the Premier League last year. What do you think for this game?
The bookies have it pretty evenly stacked. You got 2.7 on Bournemouth at home and 2.55 on West Ham away, which is interesting because I thought West Ham would be a little bit heavily favoured, despite
Well, they haven't. I don't think they've made many signings.
They've had a mass exodus there, but they're not really getting anyone in, which I think is the problem.
Look, I suppose. Again, let's talk about first games of the season and that home crowd and everything. So you can see why that may be, like you once said, I think in a show, that kind of gives you a goal either side sometimes, is that home ground advantage. So yeah, I don't know. I still feel like West Ham will win. I think they'll go there and it'll be a tight, scrappy game, but I see a 1-0 win for West Ham.
Dill?
I think it's tough to judge West Ham this season because they struggled a lot for most of last season. They were in a relegation fight for a large part of last season.
16th? Or?
I think they finished around 16th, 15th, but that was because they had a late season resurgence. But they've lost their captain, Declan Rice.
Yeah.
They
big.
About to lose their probably second best player, Paqueta, to Man City. They aren't replacing. They've just bought Alvarez from Ajax, but I don't know. I think there's not enough. David Moyes hasn't had enough time to reassess his squad and strengthen. I think their squad is worse than last season.
Yes.
And Bournemouth have made some pretty good signings.
Yeah, they have.
I think Bournemouth are more stabilised. I think it could be. I don't necessarily think there'll be a result. I think it'll be like a 1-1.
Are you looking at my notes?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I have got Bournemouth. I had 1-1. And then it's like, no, I'm not going to do that because you just talked me into a Bournemouth win. You're right. There are issues with West Ham. They do have. How much stock do you put in the Europa Conference champions? I put 0. It's like having a chocolate fire guard for your fire. They've lost so much real talent. Maybe not overall in numbers, but in terms of experience and quality. And you're right, Declan Rice is going to be hard boots to fill. So I'm going to go for a Bournemouth 1-0 win.
All right.
He says with confidence. Brighton Luton.
I can't wait.
When I look at Brighton, last year I thought there was going to be a regression after Potter came in. And with their new manager, they didn't change much. In fact, one would say there was even slight improvement on a decent squad and decent results. They're playing in Europe this year, aren't they?
I think they're in the Conference League this year.
Yes, odds-on favourites to win that. They're playing Luton, who a lot of people are pipping to be 19th or 20th, and with good reason. They've I think they gave up 46 goals in the championship last year out of 48 games, or 42 goals. It was amazing, but a lot of that is down to their goalkeeper, who is on loan. Not sure where he was on loan from, but the teams recalled him, and so without that sort of quality, they haven't spent crazily. But they're a dogged team. I mean, you'll get 10 out of 10 effort from that team every game all season. So they may not be easy to break down. They may not win many games, but they'll be in a lot of games. But this is not one of them, I don't think.
I agree. I agree.
I've gone for a Brighton 2-0 win. Not overanalyzing that. I think that Brighton are excellent at home, and I look for them to. I look for them for a 2-0 win.
Yeah, I actually read your notes. Also going for a 2-0 win.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 2-0 is pretty good. I think that Luton, like you said, they're going to give 10 out of 10 but every game, but they've only signed Ross Barkley, who is not by any means the same player that we saw at Everton like almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He's just had a pretty much failed stint at Nice, signed him on a free transfer. I think defensively they're going to sit back, but Brighton are they're going to be too good.
Yeah.
Even though they've lost Colwell, I think they're still going to be way too good.
Yeah, they play a good brand of football. And getting back to Forest, I think Forest won only one away game last year, so sort of speaks to our beat down and because they're completely. I think they beat Arsenal 1-0 last year at home, and
they also beat Liverpool at home last year.
Yeah, so at home they're a different proposition to the team that's travelling away. But I digress. Next, we got another bit of a snore for me. Everton versus Fulham. And I've got this game 0-0.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like you say, not worth overanalyzing.
Everton, I think, were one of the worst teams going forward last year.
Yeah.
I think they were terrible going forward. They're relying on players that don't score goals to score goals. Iwobi, as much as I respect him, if he's your best player, there's problems. And now Fulham have pretty much lost Mitrovic, their main goal-scoring threat. I think it's going to be not the most exciting game.
Could be choosing between watching paint dry or watching this game. And right now, I'd rather watch a sort of a reddish hue drying on my wall. It's always nice to see promoted teams play. It's always nice to watch promoted teams play. And we've got one in Sheffield United versus Crystal Palace. What do you make of that, Dylan?
Sheffield, it's nice to see them back in the Premier League. They made a bit of an impact last time they were there. It was pretty refreshing. But classic tale of promoted teams selling all their best players to their direct rivals. They've just sold their best midfielder, Sanderberger, to Burnley. And when you're vying to stay in the Premier League, the last thing you want to do is sell your best players to your relegation rivals. It just makes no sense. They also haven't really spent much money either.
Yeah.
So
Do you think they're just up there for the parachute money next year?
I think that's the case. I don't see them doing very well at all. Palace, they've lost Zaha and Elise's injured, but I think they'll just have too much quality for them. I think it's not going to be a runaway game because Sheffield, they're pretty hard to break down.
Yeah.
But I think it'll probably be a 1-0, maybe a 1-0.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch Eze play.
Well, if you actually
he'll
knew
do
the
well.
scores, I wouldn't be here. I'd be making a fortune off you. So it may be 1-0. What do you think, Ol?
I actually like a draw. I feel like Sheffield United at home, back in the Premier League. It's not unfamiliar territory for them.
You're a bit of a romantic, eh?
They're not exactly playing like the heaviest hitters of the Premier League from last season. I
think Palace were a bit of a disappointment last year.
But I see it kind of going back and forth a little bit and ending in 1-1.
A game of two halves, so to speak. Okay. Yeah, I've got 1-1. You're definitely reading my notes. I'll have to close that book. Look, like you said, Sheffield, tough to break down. The enthusiasm of Premier League football returning to Sheffield. Palace, like you said, a couple of injuries. Not an impressive season last year. And Saha he's a fabulous player, you know. So I'm going to go with 1-1, Crystal Palace. And that'll lead us to the next one, which is a very interesting game. Newcastle versus Aston Villa.
Yeah, I think this will be a good game. Just from not for Aston Villa fans, just from a viewing perspective. You know, I think Villa struggled more than we thought they were going to last year. I think a lot of people also put stock in kind of like, you know, Stevie G's got a plan and we're waiting for it to come through.
Stevie G, yeah.
You look at those you look at those red and grey dots, you know.
Pass the Pringles. Stevie G.
You know, I think he was happiest when he came on for that Legends game for Liverpool at the end of the season. So, look, Newcastle, stunning season last season.
Stunning. 11th to 4th.
Yeah.
I'd say that it was better than they could have ever hoped for.
Completely, and I think also playing, really nice football to watch. They've got a nice energy about their team. You know, some really.
It's a young team as well.
Yeah, some cool players to watch too. Playing at home, they made some good signings. Nothing insane, but just bolstering that squad even further. And I think really building for the future, so to speak. You know, to sound cliche, but it's not these kind of, we're going to try spend all our money now within the financial fair play rules on bringing in like a £90 million striker or midfield or whatever. It's like, let's kind of get some parity in the squad, get like, you know, a little bit more depth. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but I do think that they'll comfortably beat Aston Villa 3-1 at home.
Okay. Dylan.
So I think as a neutral, this is probably the game to watch for the weekend. I think that
Chelsea, Liverpool?
He's not a neutral.
I'm not a neutral there. I would love to be, but I'm not. I think these two teams, including Brighton, are probably pushing the hardest to disrupt the top six.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that Aston Villa, with Unai Emery, have set themselves up perfectly to like push the European football. I think they're probably still one or two players away from really disrupting things, but the signings they've made...
Well, the window's not closed, eh?
Yeah.
They've made some good signings.
They have Moussa Diaby, I think, is really exciting. I think it's interesting because a season or two ago, Leverkusen turned down like 80 million for him, and then they got him for 35 now, and he's only gotten better. So it's interesting to see what he'll do. I think Newcastle as well, like Ollie was saying, they've made some very good signings to like increase the strength of their overall squad. They haven't... Sandro Tonali, their main signing, I wouldn't say he's like a superstar signing that will define your squad, but it is definitely a signal of intent that they're elevating to another level. He's a Champions League quality player. I think Livramento is a very interesting signing, one for the future to replace Trippier, because he's got much time left. Harvey Barnes is good. I think 3-1's flattering Newcastle a bit, though. I think that Villa will have something in this game. I think this season they really will want to prove a point. I think that this season they're going to push hard. I think it'll probably be 2-2. I think it'll be 2-2.
Wow. Now you're on a limb. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And so do both my fans out there. Look, with me, I think, Ollie, you made a great point that they're building for the future, you know, and even though they're owned by Saudi Arabians, they're not just throwing cash at things because of the FFS. Their issue for me, and I love Eddie Howe. He's a great manager, and he's proven to be after last year. I just think that was probably too much of a progression for them, that they overachieved, and they're certainly going in the right direction, and it's a long-term thing in terms of their planning. I think Isak was a great signing last year. What did they pay for him? 60 million or something like that?
60, 65, around there.
Yeah, he's a quality player. I think he came in injured with a hamstring, and
lovely player to watch as well.
Yeah, and look, once he got healthy, he was tearing defenses apart.
There was that one goal against, was it Brighton or Everton? And he scored. He just reeled straight up the left. I don't know if you remember the goal I'm talking about.
I think so. I don't remember who it was against, but he
and
when it went up the left, did like a couple skills.
We'll find it and put it up.
Our researchers over there,
there was also the one where he did like the long range goal, and he looked at like Ben Foster in the eyes just before it went in. That was also pretty cool.
Look, he has been a great signing for them, and I look, I'm expecting him to finish in the top 5 in goal scoring, if he stays healthy. Obviously, all these are caveats for staying healthy. But what a great signing, and I think they've done a good bit of business. Not overwhelming, but this game, I think Dylan's right. I think that 3-1's a bit flattering to Newcastle, and I think there will be goals in this game. You know, I like the over 4. The over 4 bet in this game. Let's see, over 3.5 goals. Let me just have a quick skinny on what that offers. You can get 18-10, almost 2-1 on over 3.5. Because I've got this game, I think Newcastle pip it in dramatic style, 3-2. But I think it'll be a hell of a game. And great for neutrals, as you say. Then we have Brent. We have, I think we have West London versus North London.
Yeah, and we've also got some breaking news to speak about. Do you want to break the news?
Tottenham have accepted a bid from Bayern Munich for Harry Kane.
Wow.
It is higher than 100 million euros, which is about like 86 million pounds. So now it's up to Kane whether he stays or leaves.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
There might go the. I imagine it's about coming to terms with his salary, which.
I don't think will be a problem if Bayern are willing to pay 86 million for him and he's 30 years old. I don't think a salary will be a problem at all. I think they've probably already agreed that they're just sorting the formalities out.
Okay, so
He's the kind of player
well, it's not exactly breaking news. This goes out tomorrow, and but. Thanks, guys, for telling me, because
right now.
For Tottenham, I like their combination of Maddison Kane. I thought that they would do good things this year. But now with Kane out, they have to change that score. Brentford, not too bad, eh? Not a bad squad, not a great squad.
I think in the context of this game, it must be said that Brentford is not a game that Spurs in the last couple of years wins. In the last 5 games, there's been 1 win to Brentford, 2 draws.
Well, it's pretty safe to say that Kane, even if he doesn't come to terms, is not going to be playing this weekend if they're in serious negotiations.
So, I mean, I could very much see this, especially with Brentford playing at home, being a 2-2 kind of game. It's like a Tottenham Hotspur classic, you know.
Well, I had 2-1. I had a 2-1 scoreline now, but I've put it down to 1-1.
Okay.
Don't make
Brentford.
that happen. Yeah.
They had a pretty underwhelming pre-season. They were in the summer series in America with Chelsea, Brighton, Aston Villa, a bunch of other Premier League teams, and they lost. I think they drew 1 game, then they got pummeled in pretty much every single one.
Yeah.
I think the fact that their goalkeeper Raya has just gone to Arsenal is a huge blow for them. He was very important to the way they played. Like, he set the platform for them to build up from the back. His passing was insane. Also, the fact that Ivan Toney's banned until January, he was a huge source of their goals.
Why is he banned?
For gambling addiction or betting on Premier League games or on football games.
Well, we know one guy's watching this video.
Yeah, so he's banned until January.
Yeah.
Now that Spurs are missing Kane, I think that's probably messed up their plans a lot, because I think they wanted that Kane-Maddison combo.
Yeah.
But they've signed some exciting players. Manor Solomon's exciting. I think Maddison's obviously very exciting. They've just signed a new centre-back, Mickey van der Ven, which is also an exciting player. I think Spurs, could be 2-1 Spurs. I think that's also solid. But Brentford will give it a fight. Brentford will 100% give it a fight.
Yeah, I'm going back to my 2-1 Spurs, actually, you know.
You're convincing
I should actually get you to speak before I speak, because, you know, it's you sound like you know what you're talking about, whereas I don't.